Welcome to Getting Real Estate. We're your hosts, Kenda and John, with Living Colorado.
Yeah, so we're both relatively new to Colorado, and this podcast that we created is really all about what we're learning and what we wish we knew before we actually moved to Colorado. What's actually like to live in Denver.
Yeah, we're having all those conversations about the good, the bad, and we're going to take you with us along the way as we discover new areas, new parks, new restaurants, and what it really is like to live in Colorado. So today we're going to talk about something that everybody wants to know, which is the cost to live in Colorado. So it's going to be really interesting and we love your feedback. But I think, first of all, we need to understand, and John, if you can
Yeah,
talk to this, where are people moving here from? People are moving here all the time. Like, where are they coming from?
that's right. Yeah, Colorado is so beautiful, as you and I know, and it's crazy weather as well. Like sunny one day, tomorrow's supposed to get rainy and snow, and it's
Right,
going to be May, which is
right.
insane. But yeah, it is kind of like the top places. California tops it at number one, really like from LA, San Francisco, San Diego. And what we've seen is a lot of the reasons people move from California is because they can sell high. In California, we all know home prices have skyrocketed, and then buy low here, and also lifestyle. The outdoors. There's less congestion than there is in some of the big cities in California, especially LA and San Francisco. And it seems like they just want to move. They like the lifestyle. The weather is pretty moderate here, although it can get much colder than it does in the areas. But San Francisco, you think about it, it's a relatively chilly, city. People can come here, get 300 plus days of sunshine. It's really amazing. Second place is Texas, where I moved from. Austin, Dallas, Houston, Austin are the top kind of feeders into Colorado. And really, there it's because of weather and outdoor access. I know for me, moving from Austin, was there 23 years, and it was tough to move when you have roots in a city for so long. You've built not only a network, but you have family, friends, and memories, right? Which is, it's tough to step away from those memories sometimes, but people have to. Either it's job relocations, but for us, it was just the weather was just insane in Texas, and our son wants to go to school in Colorado, so obviously that is a financial kind of mindset that we had, is like cheaper for in-state tuition. We're talking about costs today. That definitely rolled up in our mind. And then the others are from the Midwest, Chicago, Minneapolis. They really want more lifestyle upgrades. Colorado obviously has the mountains and lots of sunshine. Chicago, Minneapolis, they don't have that, right? So there's that draw, and obviously, the ability to work remotely is a draw for people who are moving from the Midwest. And then finally, Mountain West or nearby states, Phoenix, Salt Lake City. Phoenix is obviously really beautiful in December, January, February, but then it starts to get super hot. Now they have some beautiful hills there, that people can go hiking and whatever, but it really is kind of the draw for the outdoors. And that's kind of reasons why people move here and why I moved here anyway.
It sounds like when you talk about these different areas, the first thing I think about is like the extreme weather that they have. In whether that's in the Northeast or wherever they're coming from, whether it's extreme hot or extreme cold. And I think that's one of the best things about living in Colorado is you don't. It's more temperate. I don't know if that's the right word. Yes, it gets
Yeah.
hot, but it's
Yep.
not humid. And if you just get in the shade, it's lovely. And yes, it gets cold, but if you can just wait until tomorrow, it's going to be 70 degrees again.
I know.
So,
Yeah.
you get a lot of seasons. You get the full effect of each season, but overall, it's pretty temperate, and
Yeah,
it's
I
I think
agree.
that might be a big driver.
Huge, huge
And
driver.
one
Yeah,
of the
I tease.
things, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was going to say real fast. I tease my brother-in-law. He's a physics teacher, head of science department at a school in Austin. And I told him when we moved here, I was like, man, the sun is so intense. Like it's hot. It must be because we're closer to the sun. And he's like, no, man, like that drives him crazy because if you look at a marble, you know, and then zoom in, you can see some grooves in that. And so like for us, it's like the relativity of that to the sun is like makes really no difference, even though we're a mile high. It's just the atmosphere, like you said, the environment. But you get in the shade, and it's night and day.
Yeah, it really is. It makes such a big difference. And I think the other interesting thing about, like, when we talk about the cost of living in Denver or in Colorado in general, people coming from different areas are going to have different perspectives on what the cost of living is here. Like, if you're coming from California, you might find, like you said, sell high and then come here and pay cash for a house because it's like, oh my God, it's so cheap. But if you're
Right.
coming from, say, maybe Atlanta or Alabama, you might come here and think it's rather expensive. But let's talk about what the average cost of a home is here in Colorado. And last week we touched on the fact that there are these micro cities or micro areas and how different the cost of living can be, or at least the cost of real estate can be in each of these little areas. So let's talk about, what do you see as one of the most expensive areas to live?
Oh, for sure, Cherry Hills here in the Denver area. I mean, from a a range standpoint, you're looking anywhere between 2.5 to 5 million plus.
Woo!
Yeah, for Cherry Hills, and so like you think about some of the California movers. There's that billionaire tax, in California, and also the mansion tax that goes into when you sell real estate, and so many of the wealthy families are starting to leave California. Tracy Tudor is a popular agent, was on Million Dollar Listing in LA, but she has an office in California, but she's doing a lot of business in Dallas and Austin now. Her team's expanded, and she's doing a lot of business there because people are moving from California, to other areas, because of those taxes, right? So Cherry Hills may be a place like, hey, I've got this equity, a lot of equity in a home from LA or Beverly Hills, and I want that kind of a lifestyle. Cherry Hills is that ultra luxury kind of market. Next would be probably Cherry Creek. Those are like 1.2 to 2.5. And
Still
as you go down,
pricey.
yeah, still pricey, right? But and you think about the homes. I'll say from Austin, there's an area called Terrytown, and that's probably in the same area as Cherry in terms of cost as Cherry Creek, but the homes are going to be a little bit larger here than they are in Austin for the price, right? So you get a little bit more for
Right.
the price than you would in Austin. Well, a year or 2 years ago, obviously Austin's market's correcting a little bit, but yeah, it's still pricey. But then you go all the way down to Lakewood. Lakewood's kind of an entry suburban neighborhood, and those homes, go 600, 900,000 on average. So there's quite a discrepancy. And then Lakewood is also closer to the mountains, so it's very popular for people who want to get quick access, to either ski, hike, all of the things the mountains provide all of us in Colorado.
What kind of people do you think are, like you touched on that, but like California people are going into the Cherry Creek, Cherry Hills area, and then more like, I think, because I live in Littleton, I see a lot of families coming
Yep.
here. So a lot of first time buyers, a lot of, and it's kind of starter homes. So, like for us, we moved here from Cabo and we wanted to be able to pay cash for our house. So we came here, bought a smaller home to see, do we like it in Denver?
Yeah.
And perhaps at another time in the future, we might buy a little closer into the city. But for right now, it's a perfect way to get into a market and kind of discover if you like the area.
Yeah.
So so another thing that's really different from area to area is like utilities and costs of living.
Yeah, I know you were talking to me about in Sterling, the differences in terms of utilities. There's a water district or something. What is it in
It's a
Sterling?
special tax district,
Okay.
and basically our taxes in the Sterling Ranch area are incredibly high. And it's because, well, there, and water's also extremely expensive in Littleton because water is definitely a problem in Colorado. But a special tax district is a district where a developer comes in and says, okay, I want to build a sizable community in this district. And what they do is they get a grant basically from the government and say, hey, give me this money and I'm going to put in for you the infrastructure, the water, the roads. I'm going to put in all of those things. And then we're going to tax the future residents who come to
Yeah.
live here, who buy here, and they're going to end up paying back this loan that we took from you. It's clever, and it's a good way of these
Mm,
developers being able to come in and put in this very important infrastructure, but it
sure.
does make for super high taxes. And I think there are in Colorado there are about 2,200 special district tax
Wow.
zones. So
Wow.
it's something to pay attention to for sure.
Yeah. So that could be neighborhood to neighborhood.
It is, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So in
Yeah,
Texas,
because
we
I think
had,
there are areas in Littleton that are not in a special district tax zone, but I'm in Sterling Ranch and Sterling
yeah.
Ranch
So I know
is.
Highlands Ranch does not have,
Right.
or specific neighborhoods, I guess, in Highlands Ranch does not have that. But in Texas, we had something similar. It's called MUD, Municipal Utility District, and it was kind of the same thing where the developers have to put in all of this infrastructure, and also water treatment plants potentially or whatever, and so that gets you charged back to future homeowners, and developers get to recoup that money. But that is definitely something to keep in mind. I'll say, yesterday you say you were surprised about Sterling's taxes. I had to pay our taxes yesterday because in Colorado, as you know, like you can pay over two payments, or you can pay all at once, and all at once is April 30th of every year. And I paid ours yesterday, and it's a fraction of what it was in Austin, and that was a surprise, a good surprise, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, in Austin it was 2 to 3% was our annual tax, and so there's a lot of fighting with the appraisal district to see how we can get that reduced, and it's also based on valuation, right? Not just what you actually paid for the home. So, and here it's similar, but it's far less. It's I'd say equivalence of like 0.5%, 0.7%, of the value of the home in taxes, which
Hmm.
was a nice surprise.
Yeah, that is a nice surprise.
Yeah,
Speaking of surprises, what else surprised you about what's more expensive than you would have expected?
yeah. I think like sales tax as an example, in Austin is 8.25%. Here it's 8.8% in Denver. Now it can get less in some of the neighboring towns around us, but Denver in general. So I was surprised at the just general cost of things because of the additional sales tax. And like I said, it can be in the suburban areas can be a little bit less. So that was definitely a surprise. And then in Denver, I think too, it's like there's higher restaurant prices. Especially like Low High Rhino in Cherry Creek. But part of it is you pay for convenience, and it's the walkability and all of those things, which add to like parking. I've never been to a mall that you have to pay to park, right? So
Right.
like you're going to go spend money there, but you got to go pay. That surprised me, as well. I don't know. What are some of the things that you've seen that surprised you?
There were two things that surprised me, and you and I have actually talked about one of these things before, which is the cost to register your car, like a
Oh my
car
God.
tag. Like I believe in Georgia, which it's been 7 years since I lived in Georgia, but I think it would cost to renew your tag, like, I don't know, 150, $200. And here it's like my car is like $1,200 a year to get my tag.
Yeah. Yeah. That blew me away. I
It's
mean, people warned
crazy.
us. It is crazy. They warned us like, just wait till you register your car. Just wait till you register your car. And I was like, okay, it can't be that much, right? But you're right. It was over $1,000, and in Texas, it's 78, $80, a year to do it. So that definitely was a surprise. Despite having been warned, I was still, shocked. And I have friends that actually drive to Texas to register their car, and they still have like Texas plates, whatever. But they've been here for 3 or 4 years already.
Well, I can understand why they would do that because it's so
Yeah.
it's pretty it was I was really surprised and I wasn't warned. I walked in thinking, that I was going to have to pay, a couple $100 because it was it was a new car and I was shocked. So,
Yeah.
and if you pay with a credit card, they add like 20%. I don't know, they add some
Yes.
crazy. So you have to pay
Yes.
with cash. So make
A
sure you take
convenience fee or whatever.
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Convenient for who? And
Right.
then the other thing that surprised me is insurance.
Oh my gosh.
And we're going to do an entire episode on homeowners insurance here because it is a little bit touchy here. It's kind of a big topic, even amongst our government officials here in Colorado, our state officials, because Colorado is considered a dual catastrophe state, which means that the insurance companies have classified us as being at risk for two separate catastrophic events that could be very expensive. One of them is hail, which surprised the heck out of me because how do you
Mm.
protect yourself from hail? You can't. Like your roof is going to get it's going to be a problem. But because I think we're in the foothills and because of the air currents, we are at very high risk of very damaging hail storms. And then the second is fire, also because of the way the wind whips in and because of how dry it is here. So those two catastrophic events are both at high risk here. So there are areas where you can't even really like get insurance,
I know.
homeowners
It's so
insurance.
sad. Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I think, when we moved here, or I guess during the time that we were looking for homes, there were some fires in the foothills, kind of up north of Morrison, and the smoke was incredible. But it just showed the danger for, like you talk about hail, but also the fire dangers that also hit California. And I think it's that arid. People don't realize that we are a desert climate, right? So if you looked at Denver is really the front range, and so like we are similar to like eastern Colorado in that the trees and everything that are here because they were planted. They're not native necessarily to this area. They've been brought down a little bit from the mountains, and so that surprised me. Is like that we were a desert climate, but that causes the dryness and with the lack of precipitation that we've had, it makes it really dangerous. But yeah, when we got insurance, even for the car, um, I was really surprised, and I guess it's because of the hail. For that is, and also obviously winter roads and potential accidents. That doesn't help it for sure.
Right, absolutely. Speaking of winter, um, you moved here because Hayden likes to ski.
Mhm.
I don't ski, so I don't know like how much that costs, but talk to us about how much, like say you want to ski. How much does it cost to go skiing?
It's a great question. So I think it's like golf, I think, right? So you have to get your gear, you have to buy clubs, you got to get skis, you got to get boots, you got to get jackets. Maybe it's a little bit more than golf, but
I
it
think
does
it sounds
cost. Yeah, it does cost quite a bit for that initial investment. Now you can always go and rent, So let's look at it from that perspective. You're renting, and say you're going to go, to um, like I don't know Breckenridge or whatever. You can get there with definitely within a day trip. You can go up and back to Breckenridge, but you've got to rent. It's probably $100, $125 just to rent gear, right? And then your lift ticket for the day is going to be 250 ish, right?
the day.
So that's per person, right? So it's a $400 expense just to do that. Then you've got food and your gas or whatever. And so the mountains, while beautiful and offer so much, it is pretty pricey. Now people in Colorado know that there's passes, and that's definitely the way to go if you're a skier and you don't want to save money on lift tickets. You just get a pass for the season. But yeah, it's you're looking at $400 or so just to get up there and ski. Now, if you have a pass and your own gear, after the initial investment. It's just your time, to get up there, and any food, that you're purchasing. Those other things are all sunk costs, but so that's what we did. We got
Do
passes.
you happen to know how much an annual pass is? Does it cover like all the ski areas, or do you have to get a different pass for each area?
Yeah, so there's the Icon Pass and Epic Pass, and so there's different resorts here that are on one or the other, and then there's Loveland Ski Area, which is owned actually by a Texas family, but it's kind of a local place. It's right before the Eisenhower Tunnel on I-70, and that's less. So that pass was like, I want to say $600 for the year. Whereas, like, I think we had the Icon Pass, and that was $1,200, $1,100, per person. But that's, you think about, well, $1,100. If I'm up there, 5 times, 6 times, then that it pays for itself.
Hmm.
And people are going up, much more frequently than that when they have a pass.
Yeah. Uh, Another really cool thing about Colorado is that it's a big outdoor community, and people like it's so easy and cheap to get exercise and to get, just to be outside in nature. And there are bike trails everywhere you go.
Yeah,
There's walking trails there, and you can go to parks and you can hike and there's so many things that you can do that are very affordable. So if you have a big family,
yeah,
you can go for walks in the wood, and you would never be alone. Well, you would be alone in certain areas, but my point being that everybody here is they do it. They're outside. I sit here in the morning in my house out on my back porch, and I just watch people walking,
yeah,
just out walking, and it doesn't matter if it's snowing or raining or hot. They just go outside and walk and
yeah,
ride bikes, and it's really interesting to me that you can do
yeah.
that for free.
I just love that too. Yeah, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's the Denver Nature and Science Museum, which is beautiful, and not super expensive to go to. The zoo, also in City Park, has great things for folks to do, and it definitely helps with costs, especially when you have a family. I think when we moved, we were just like in explore mode, trying to see kind of all the things. And you're right, like the parks that are around are just so beautiful, and people are out there, playing volleyball, just doing slackline stuff between trees or hammocks, relaxing, reading books. They've got Jazz in the Park in Denver, in the summertime, which is free to go to, and there's food trucks, and you can go and just listen to live music around, this pond in City Park. It's just so beautiful, and lots of things you can do, that are invigorating and enriching, and are free.
Yeah, which is great because we're talking about how much it costs to live here, but you can still have a really rich life and manage your costs a little bit better. I know that there's a Rhino street festival coming up in
Yeah.
a week or two that I'm going to go to, and I'm excited about that. I think dining here, um, some people feel like dining is expensive. Again, I came from Cabo, and Cabo is, the Riviera of Mexico. It's like the Beverly Hills of Mexico. It's very expensive. But I find dining here much more affordable. Now, tips are more, right? Everybody
Yeah.
wants a 25% tip now, which
Yeah.
great, whatever. We could talk about that on another
Yeah.
episode, but I find the food a good bit cheaper than it was in Cabo. What about how does it compare to
Yeah.
Texas?
Yeah, what? That's a great thing. I think it's very equivalent, to Austin. Now, obviously food prices have gone up, in the last year, and I think probably to the same inflation rate that's hitting, Austin and the rest of the country. But yeah, I think dining is interesting. I know that, like, in Denver, in specific areas, it probably is more expensive than, my son, for example, says the Chipotle across from East High is more expensive than others, because it's like you have this like audience of kids that rush there during lunch to get things, and you can go, and it surprised me. It was like $38 for Hayden and I to have lunch at Chipotle, and I was like, that's crazy. Yeah, yeah. I mean, casual fast food or whatever, but yeah, I mean, it's good, but I don't know, 30, $40. That's a lot for two people to eat lunch on a random day. I don't know what other like hidden costs have you seen dining? You say it's like kind of a little less, but what about like any entertainment or any other differences that you've seen here?
I really love the theater. I go to the theater and I really love that. I find that also affordable. But again, I'm coming from an area where everything was outrageously expensive. So gas is cheaper here. My sister-in-law came to visit me from Atlanta, which historically has very low gas, and she couldn't believe that the gas was cheaper here than it was in Atlanta,
Oh
which
wow.
again, right now it's high.
Yep.
But I was really surprised by that. But as far as hidden costs that I did not consider, there's more maintenance on your house because of the extreme weather changes and the extreme sun. So I think, you have to paint a little bit more and it's dry. Paint a little bit more often. Water is very expensive, so you have to, be very careful about watering your lawn. A lot of people are going to artificial turf because they don't want to have to water their lawn.
Yeah.
And, again, hail and snow and ice and the salt that they put on the roads can cause issues with your car, and you need to make sure you keep your car washed. And I think those are the things that surprised me the most was just how much more attentive to the upkeep and the maintenance that you have to do on your home to keep your home what it needs to be,
Yeah.
because of the climate.
Yeah. I agree, and I think too. In speaking about homes, right, and just general pricing, when we get folks giving us estimates for various, things, I think one thing to keep in mind for everybody is that get several bids. I've seen yard cleanups come back for $1,600, and the same work come back for $450. So there's a big discrepancy, and I don't know if it's neighborhood targeting sometimes. Like just people assume, but just be. I think if you're just diligent on value and looking at various prices for stuff, you can definitely maintain some of these hidden costs or surprise costs that are out there. And don't I wouldn't rely just on one bid for home services for sure. Because it can vary greatly.
We are both thriving here. We love it here. But who do you
Yeah.
think might struggle? Like, what kind of person might struggle living here in Denver?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think people that are like hustle bustle kind, right? They love fast paced life. They want to keep, stay busy all the time. I think that if you can't, as they say, stop and smell the roses, then it can be that. I think that could be a little challenging for someone because it is a pretty laid back lifestyle. There's a lot of similarities, surf culture, ski culture, right? And it's kind of like, friendly, laid back, no rush. And when we lived in Cabo, I knew like when we had work getting done, it's Mexico time. It's just like mañana. It's like tomorrow they'll do it. And we
Yep.
found that the same thing kind of applies here. Is that there's some trades and whatever that are just like, hey, we're just gonna wait till tomorrow, and or it is what it is, or I got to go skiing, so I can't come today. Like you just kind of like you kind of you run up against that, sometimes.
I think the phrase is the mountain is calling and I must go,
Yes, that's
right?
right. That's
Yeah,
right. No, I
absolutely.
mean it's definitely happened for sure. Kendra, what do you think like or how people or folks that are looking for condos, what they should be aware of, or just thinking about not necessarily hidden costs but extra costs.
Yeah, I think there are some very good things about buying a condo here, especially for like somebody like me who spends part of the time here and part of the time in Cabo. There are benefits to having a condo, But there are a couple of things you need to consider. Number one, the HOAs in condos can be incredibly high. And there are a lot of there's a lot of buzz right now in the community about how high these HOAs are, and some mortgage companies are even struggling with giving you a mortgage with relation to your income and how much you can afford because they're factoring in the HOAs. And
Mm,
the HOAs are incredibly high. So you may not qualify for as much if you do get a condo. You may want to look at a little bit less than what you can afford because you have to factor in that cost of $1,000 to $1,500 a month extra for HOAs, which is a thing. And then the other thing to know about condos is for some reason in the Denver area right now, they just aren't selling like single family homes are selling. I think the demand for condos is really diminishing, and you just need to be, if you're going to buy a condo and you're going to sell your condo, you need to be aware that you're kind of going to be in it for the long haul and
yeah.
that your buyer is going to have to address the same issue that you had to address with regards to how much can you afford, not just based on your mortgage, but also based on the HOA fees for condos. They work for some people, you know,
Yeah.
but you just have to be aware of those hidden costs.
Yeah, agree. I think too that you posted something on social media last week talking about the importance of staging and pricing to this today in this market more than ever. And I think you're right, especially with condos, you have to do everything you can to make sure that it looks like a show, like a model, right? It needs to be move-in ready and it needs to be priced right. And there's a lot of inventory out there in the condo market. And I think too, like one of the changes that are coming up is, as you mentioned about debt to income ratio and getting a mortgage, that lenders are now having to look at the health of a condo's
HOA.
reserves, right? How they're operating, and even if you're able to qualify for the mortgage, if the condo does not pass muster to the lender, then there's a potential that you can't get that mortgage for that specific condo building, which is a new piece of legislation that just came out.
Yeah, and we already were dealing with a sluggish market in the condo market, and now that's going to just really push it to the next level, I think.
Yeah. So overall, do you think the costs benefit kind of outweigh the potential high price for things?
Yeah, wow. For me personally, there is no question. Just having the variety of the weather and the option of so many things to do. For me, even though I don't ski, it's worth everything that it costs more than what I would expect. It's worth it to have, to pay a little bit higher taxes because I can walk to a park. I can walk to a national park. I can walk to the mountain. Like I can, I have so many resources at my fingertips to have a really rich and great life here. And it's so worth it to live here. The people are friendly, the food is amazing, and the climate is just exactly what I was looking for. What do you think?
Yeah. No, totally. I echo everything that you said. It was a tough move. I left a lot of family back home, but it is when they come to visit, they're just like, when can we come back, right? Because it's
Hmm.
just so beautiful, and like you said, people are amazing, and there's so many great places to discover. And I know we're going to be, doing some, shows about like hidden gems that we love, in and around town. So I'm looking forward to talking about all that.
Yeah, we have a lot of really great things coming up in the very near future. We're going to talk next week about just what day-to-day life is really like here. We'll talk a little bit about the traffic and the little micro communities that we've mentioned in the past. And then in the following week, we're going to draw some similarities again between the Cabo market and the Colorado market and how we can still enjoy our Mexican love and our Mexican passion here in Colorado, which
Yeah.
it was very important to me. I wanted to be able to have those roots remain, and is one of the reasons I chose to live in Colorado was because of the Colorado Cabo connection.
Yes, I totally agree. There is definitely connection there, lots of similarities. Hopefully, we're able to do the podcast remotely from a surprise location, but we'll see how that kind of turns out.
Well, that's going to be so fun. I can't wait.
Yeah, I agree.
We
I
have to make
agree.
sure we can get some food too, though. I forgot
Yeah,
about
exactly. Maybe a margarita.
that's right, exactly
Yeah,
at 9:30 in the morning.
I know.
Well,
Maybe not.
that's a wrap for today. We appreciate so much you watching the podcast. And as always, please put your comments, questions, things you want to know about living in Colorado in the comments below. And we will absolutely address your comments and answer your questions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. And as we talk about things that we learn as we've moved to Colorado, hopefully you get some insight into what life is like here and about real estate as well.
See you in the next one.
Yep. See ya.